Again, while we don't expect widespread evacuations will be needed during this storm, for those that live in our coastal counties where coastal flooding will be a threat, make sure you know your zone. That is, know if you live in a predetermined evacuation zone. About 20 counties on the coast have established these zones that local officials will use if they need to order evacuations. Visit knowyourzone.nc.gov to find out if you live in one of these evacuation zones and listen for your zone if evacuations are ordered. Again, it's good to be prepared, but we don't expect widespread evacuations with this storm. We've received some questions about providing North Carolina resources to Florida as well as other impacted states. We currently have resources providing tactical communications support at the Florida State EOC, and as soon as we know that other resources will not be needed here at home, we will quickly pivot to look at opportunities to support our partners in those impacted states. I want to say I'm incredibly proud of the men and women of the State Emergency Response Team, local, state, federal, tribal, nonprofit and volunteer agencies, and the private sector that all work together to prepare and respond to ultimately protect 10.5 million North Carolinians. We also need each of you as a part of that whole of community approach to check on your neighbors, friends, and family as we move through this event to make sure everyone is safe and secure. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, Director Ray. And now we will hear from North Carolina Department of Transportation Secretary Eric Boyette.
Thank you, Governor. Good afternoon. From the Department of Transportation, I'd like to start by saying our thoughts and prayers are with our neighbors to the south as they recover from the devastation brought on by this storm. NCDOT is actively monitoring this storm closely and other weather conditions that are impacting our state. This will help us respond to the transportation infrastructure needs across North Carolina. Our crews have checked necessary equipment to ensure that we are ready. We have had more than 2,200 employees statewide help us prepare this week for this event. We have about 1,500 chainsaws, 11,000 barricades, emergency signs, and ample fuel supply to respond. We have also specialized equipment ready to clear debris and about 1,400 trucks, 400 backhoes and loaders, and more than 200 motor graders ready to respond. The divisions have also taken inventory of items that they need to use for repair of pipes and bridges as needed. Our traffic safety units have been proactively monitoring speeds on our north-south interstate routes since early this week, and at this point, they have not observed any issues with any additional traffic coming from evacuations. Our road construction across all of our state could pause due to severe weather impacts. In the east, the Ocracoke Express, our passenger ferry for the 2022 season, ended early yesterday due to potential impacts to the Outer Banks. We've also suspended the ferry routes from Cedar Island and Swan Quarter to Ocracoke Island this morning due to weather conditions. Due to the anticipated use of high winds, our Ports Authority will pause vessel operations Friday in Wilmington and Morehead City. At this time, all state-run passenger trains are continuing to operate, but for the latest schedules, please visit ncbytrain.org. Looking ahead, once the damage is assessed, we will work to get our roads open swiftly as possible using our contract partners as needed. Safety is always our number one priority, and we want to make sure everyone stays off the roads in the storm-affected areas. Please don't drive through roads with standing water. Turn around, don't drown. Never drive around barricades. The barricades are there to protect you. Please be patient, and we always encourage you to look at and visit NC or drivenc.gov for the most up-to-date information on travel conditions. Again, thank you, and please be safe. Governor.
Thank you, Secretary Boyette. If you guys have questions, we have microphones on both sides of the room, and there will also be, we'll take questions from people who may have called in. In addition to Director Ray and Secretary Boyette, we have Secretary Buffalo, Commander Johnson, and General Hunt here to take questions as well. Any questions, guys?
My name is Evan Siri with Spectrum News 1. Thanks for taking my question. How has what has transpired in Florida affected strategies here for preparation for this storm?
We know that these storms can be unpredictable and their strength can be so impactful. We know the plan. Unfortunately, here in North Carolina, we have a lot of experience having gone through these storms. And so I think we are ready across the board. We know, too, that even though this storm will lose strength by the time it reaches North Carolina, that even tropical or subtropical storms with heavy rains and wind can cause severe damage and death in North Carolina. So we're going to be ready. We also, once this storm passes here and we make sure that we've got the resources we need, we will help provide more resources to Florida if they need them. Yes.
Dawn Vaughn with the News and Observer. You all mentioned watching it and potential changes once it reaches here. What kind of plans are in place for potential emergency shelters if it doesn't track exactly where everyone thinks it's going, and other response?
Yeah, there's at least one county that's talking about putting together an emergency shelter, but I'll let Director Ray address that specifically.
So thank you for that question, Dawn. I think, as you said, and as we've talked about, we are going to see probably some continued shifts and evolution of where this storm will actually make landfall in South Carolina tomorrow. I think making sure that this team is here, that we are all working together, closely monitoring it, is going to allow us to quickly pivot and adjust and see if that storm does enter South Carolina in a more northern area that impacts in our southeastern part of the state a different way, or central part of the state a different way, to be able to have those partners here ready to move those resources around, particularly as it relates to immediate emergency sheltering, I think is going to be critical. We've had a lot of discussion over the course of this week. It has ramped up today with our local partners, with our local emergency management officials, on what they're looking at from both a need and staffing standpoint to be able to support emergency sheltering. Again, we have one county that has kind of proactively leaned forward and is looking at potentially opening one tonight. That's pending, I think, discussion with the county leadership. We know there's discussion with many other counties about what may be needed based on storm track, and understanding that as we move through the rest of today and into tonight, we still have a significant amount of time for this storm to continue to shift and evolve. So again, I think to me this reinforces why we need to have this forward lean, why the State Emergency Operations Center needed to be activated proactively today to make sure that we have those partners in this building and in our regional centers, so that as we see what the impact will be on the ground, we can quickly move the right resource around.
And for people thinking about the next days ahead, is it primarily tomorrow is the most concerned as far as North Carolina's impact?
So right now we will start to see impacts tomorrow through the day into the evening. Primarily, the timing has shifted, and again, this is one of the reasons why you folks need to be aware of the forecast. Earlier this week, it was going to be a Saturday impact. Now it's largely a Friday impact. We will see some lingering rainfall and precipitation and risk from weather through the weekend, but the bulk of the weather and the risk that we're talking about right now from either the western part of the state or on the coast is going to really be concentrated right now, tomorrow and tomorrow night.
I just wanted to clarify regarding the pre-positioning the crews. It sounded like they're primarily in the western and central parts of the state. Is anything going on in the eastern part of the state, or are you all just not expecting the eastern part to be as heavily impacted as the central and western parts?
So I think a couple of things. I think great question. A couple of things. One, there are a significant amount of search and rescue and swiftwater rescue capabilities that we have across our counties, across North Carolina, especially in the eastern part of the state. One of the reasons we picked the task forces that we did to move to western North Carolina was to leave some of the capability organic to those areas in eastern North Carolina. Additionally, not knowing exactly where the storm will track into North Carolina and what those impacts may be, having the team stationed in central North Carolina along the major throughways are going to allow us to move them either direction. If we see the major risk or threat occurring because of landslides and flash flooding in the mountains, we already have some pre-positioned there, but to be able to move some that are staged in the Triad area that direction would be would be one possibility, or the other direction to the east. Again, that's going to be determined based on final track into the state, what impact we're seeing, as well as what the local jurisdictions identify are their gaps or needs. Because again, we have some incredible local public safety agencies in the state that do incredible work every day and have done a really great job at building capacity, especially around search and rescue and swift water.
Do we have any questions on the phone? We don't.
For our reporters on the phone line, please press 1 at this time if you'd like to ask a question. Reporters on the phone, press 1 to ask a question. Don't see any hands at this time, Governor.
Okay. Thank you very much for joining us today. Everybody stay safe out there.